Welcome back, crew. With the open gaming license controversy taking over the tabletop space, one of the real silver linings I've seen come from this conversation is a lot of 5e players and even other people in the tabletop space talk about trying new RPGs. And really, one of the cool things, and kind of the topics of this video, I've seen a lot of people have questions about how to find a new game or TTRPG to make their core for their table, or even just how to go about selecting a new game to try out and seeing if they like it. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to go through a few of the core features I look for when determining a new RPG or new tabletop RPG to bring to the table, and hopefully to help anybody that's curious, kind of with all the information swirling around and about branching out into trying a new game with the crew. So stay tuned for that. But really, one of the biggest things I think when going for a new system is kind of thinking about what you like with your current system. So if you're from 5e, think about the things with 5e you've enjoyed the most. And just kind of think about your sessions. It doesn't have to be from 5e in particular. And I've seen a lot of people, especially people that love the RP most aspect from 5e, or kind of playing 5e, I should say, you can usually utilize that to find some cool systems. Because a lot of times the mechanics really weren't hidden as well for them, but they loved the energy the table brought to the discussions and the scenarios they came across. And sometimes it's allowed them to find, hey, I don't really want mechanics heavy. Maybe I want to do something more light on that side. So they really, before we get into all the tips and tricks, really just think about what you like from your current sessions of 5e or whatever RPG you're currently playing. And if you want to be thorough about it, take a little notes and kind of say, okay, I loved harsh combat. I want to make sure it's good tactical combat. Or, oh, I really love when RP flows and the game kind of steps out of the way and allows us to get through that. Or I love rolling a d20, which is fair. I love rolling d20s too. But really, to kind of take a note of that, and that'll help you as you go through and you'll start to look at other RPGs and kind of find some good suggestions and kind of helps you narrow down the wide market and things that may fit well to your style and your table style. Last thing, too, before we get to the true tips, check out online. My three places I usually go whenever I'm looking up like a new tabletop RPG. If you're a Redditor, go to /RPG, so RPG subreddit. That place is phenomenal. They have a whole wiki that helps you go by different genres and themes and find different tabletop RPGs. They're great too if you post into the subreddit asking like, hey, I like these and these things. Can you have any suggestions? They'll throw a ton at you. It's really a great spot to go for that, especially if you don't have a clue what you want to go for. Now, if you do have a little bit more of an idea, maybe you're like, hey, the One Ring sounds pretty cool. Can you guys tell me a little bit more about it? I always recommend going to either the Discord or the subreddit for the actual game, especially if you do end up picking it up. Those places are invaluable for learning how to play, but also learning about the game itself and kind of what you can expect from it, just to kind of get you started on that side. And then the third thing I'll suggest too, a lot of the games have free resources for the game itself. Like they'll have a free version you can pick up and play even, but that gives you kind of the framework of the system, gives you a little bit about it, so you could either kind of do a trial run or just read through it and see if the mechanics and what the system's looking for kind of lines up with your expectations. So those three, subreddits, discords, and then checking out the free rules, biggest tips I could say for finding a new system before we get into kind of how you narrow it down and how you find the system that's best for you. So check those out. But yeah, let's get into the real meat of it. So there's about 6 different things I would say to really kind of ask yourself before you go and look for a new TTRPG. We'll kind of kick it off with the first one. So the genre, what type of genre are you looking for? Because a lot of times, especially if you're coming from 5e, we've tried to use 5e as the catch-all, the jack of all trades for any type of story. Sometimes you try to tell a mystery with it. Sometimes you try to run heists with it. Sometimes you tell a story of epic heroes, which I think it does best. But one of the nice things, especially if you're willing to try new RPGs, is that you can find a system that explicitly matches, is designed to run the genre you're interested in going for. Like if you wanted to run a heist, Blades in the Dark, perfect for it. If you want to do a superhero story, Mutants and Masterminds, gold standard for it. Figuring out the genre that you want to run, this really allows you to hone in on the different RPGs within that genre, so you can have kind of that glass slipper moment or the porridge moment where it's made just right, so you don't have to try to fit a square peg in a round hole. So that's why I put that one first. just kind of when you're going through and you're looking to try new RPGs, especially with this kind of new OGL renaissance, just try to see what type of genre you want to find. Go to RPG subreddit. They've got like a whole genre wheel there, and it could be kind of a good way to see what's out there and kind of what's in that genre. And then you can go through and filter down following some of the other tips next. So after you found the genre, this is kind of similar, but what type of story do you want to tell, and how do you want the mechanics to support that story? So it's kind of a two-parter there, because once you find the story you want to tell, you kind of find the role of mechanics. Do you want to have, like, if you're telling the story about a mercenary company that's going to fight against all odds to bring home their gold, you may want a more tactical RPG. You may want to go with Pathfinder. You may want to go with, or maybe even want to go with kind of an old school Renaissance and go with one of the more gritty ones. You may want to End of the Odd or Mork Board or something along those odds. But it's just one of those things you want to make sure you go through and find how you want those mechanics to support it. Because sometimes the story you want to tell can get in the way of the mechanics and vice versa, and you don't want to have that rub there. And especially if you're not chained to a system, now's the time to find that system that fits perfectly what you want to do. So especially use those free, and most of the RPGs I've come across lately have free resources. You can see a little bit about the system, read those, see what they do, see if they align with the story you're looking to run with, and hopefully you can find that best fit. And kind of along those lines too, kind of flowing on this, do you want a rules light or a rules heavy system? And now, one thing I'm going to put a caveat in here before we go into this, because this is a little personal experience. If you came from 5e, or if you came from Pathfinder, or if you're just a real rules heavy guy, and maybe haven't tried out some of the rules lights, give them a shot. I used to be pretty similar. I like good mechanics. I don't care if it's crunchy. I didn't think I would be a fan of the rules light, and I kind of prejudged them. But I've had a blast with running this channel and getting to try out some of those rules lights that I may not have picked up before. We've already talked about End of the Odd. Blades in Dark is kind of in the middle of that spectrum. It kind of gets pushed as a rules light, but there's a decent amount of rules with it. It's one of those, I say it's one of the best balances if you want a mixture of both, because there's a lot of cool stuff in there. It really has like some fun features, but it is still quite quick and fast on its feet. So really, just kind of go through it, and especially if you're a rules heavy guy, try some of the rules light, and vice versa too. I would say my perspective is coming from some of those. I thought I was completely rules heavy. Rules Light has a blast, and it's really good for kind of one shots or somebody canceled and you want to still get a game out on the table. End of the Odd in particular, you can build a character in 5 minutes. DM, you can kind of come up with a story as you go. The mechanics are light and easy to pick up. It's the perfect somebody's canceled game. Let's get something going and keep the game night alive. But yeah, really figure out what you want to do between rules light, rules heavy, or maybe somewhere in the middle. Because I think that's kind of a big piece there. And I've seen a lot of, to pick on 5e a little bit, a lot of 5e players where they'd rather have that rules light system, or they'd rather have a more complex customizable system and go rules heavy. So just kind of pick through and what you want to do there. Along with this, we're going to kind of put in prep work. How much prep work do you want to do if you're the game master, even if you're the player, actually? How much prep work do you want to do to bring the game to table? As a player, how long do you want to spend building your character? One of my favorite RPGs, and if you've watched the channel, you've seen me talk about it before, I love Mutants and Masterminds. But one of the caveats to Mutants and Masterminds, especially if you're a first-time player, is building a PC can be an endeavor. I love it, though. It's a true classless system. You spend points on what you think is worthwhile to your character build, and you have a truly customizable PC. But that first build you do is going to be hard, even if you do it asking questions or having like your game master there. I've run, my whole table was new players to the system. I've run them through it. Everybody had some type of questions. And even usually with a lot of times, because we run a lot of new games on my channel, we could usually answer the questions over like a Discord chat. But I think at least 3 of the 6 players I've had run this system, we've done like a actual call so we could live chat it out and help build that PC. So definitely that's one of the things to consider, is that it is a little bit more complex for some systems for building the PC, but also when it comes to prep work, the game master is usually the one that's doing a lot of it. A lot of the rules lights games, if you go like into the odd, even Blades, it can be very low prep work. You kind of have to come up with a scenario, and your players have a little bit more buy-in to this, or little more levers to pull, I'll say, with the story, and they can kind of tweak and bring out the story as well, and you take some of that burden off of your shoulders. But if you have kind of a campaign or adventure fleshed out, sometimes it's better to go with some of those systems that may be a little bit more crunchy, like a Pathfinder, or One Ring, or Aliens, where you have to kind of have a little bit more of the structure of the story laid out, and have a more prep work in building your monsters and encounters and all of that. Both of them have their place. I like to kind of run a mixture of both, especially with some of the light systems when cancellations occur, because it's really kind of one I can bust out and just kind of think of a story quickly and throw my players into it and have them kind of collaborate with me to tell something fun. After that, especially one of the things I didn't even think about, and this is a late addition into this list because it's something I didn't think about until I started this channel and started playing a lot of other tabletop RPGs. Because with 5e and most everything else I've played, unless I'm playing Star Wars 5e, I usually do my own homebrew world, but setting is a big piece of a lot of the tabletop RPGs. Pick on Blades and actually, we'll pick on One Ring. That's set in Middle Earth. So it's one of those ones, even if you like the mechanics, sometimes it can be hard to disengage some of the system's mechanics from the setting itself. So if you wanted to do your homebrew setting, sometimes it's better, even if you like mechanics in some systems, to go to a more agnostic system. Like we'll pick on Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds, you can pretty much build any setting you want to with it, and they give you the tools to do so. So just kind of take a look at that. That one I think is the most tweakable. So don't feel like you're baked in on that one. Like Aliens, another free league game I loved. It's a great sci-fi horror game, and while it is set in the Aliens universe, it's a few tweaks and you can make it anything you want it to. I've mentioned it a couple times on the channel. I've got a great Star Wars game I want to run with it when I've got some players. So definitely, it's tweakable, but just consider that because there's some games like Blades in the Dark I feel like would be a nightmare to try to untangle that and make it to your own setting, but keep an open mind. The last big thing, length of campaign. This one's an easy one because some games lend themselves better to one-shots or quick story campaigns, and some games you may want to run a longer story with. Pathfinder is great for running some long stories with, as you get to see your PCs progress. Into the odd, well, I've had a lot of people on the channel too, and comment after I did my review for it. I thought it'd be better for short, but some people have run some good campaigns from it. They've said, but until I tried out, I was gonna say this in my mind. It seems like it's a little bit better to a short campaign. And that's just one of those things because you want to, especially the longer you play with the same characters, usually people like to see them progress or get new features or new things they can do. So it's not the same, even if it's a rapturing or a thrilling story, you're not just doing the kind of the same old roles mechanics with it. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're building out the campaign and how you'd like that to go. And actually, one last thing I'll add before we wrap it up. When you're looking for a new system, this one's been something that's been kind of big to me lately. I've been a huge fan of classless systems. So kind of look how they do leveling up, how they handle classes, how they handle building your PC, and just kind of figure out what's important to you. I know some people like to have levels and kind of classes and have that kind of distinct progression. I've really been feeling with still having leveling, but having that classes where you can kind of go through and point by what you want to have and get a cool PC out of it. And I've been some of my players have recommended I should check out GURPS sometime. I may do that. From what that was one that's a little intimidated me on that side, but I've heard really cool things about it. So maybe sometime down the line when I got a little bit more free time, we'll bring it out as one of our game of the months because that's really one of the gold standard I've heard for truly classes and going through and building your PC based off points. But those are just some tips for if you're a new to the world of TTRPGs, or if you're coming off 5e, or just somebody that's want to mix it up a little bit. Just kind of think about those things. What type of genre you want, what type of story you're looking to tell, the rules light versus rules heavy, the setting you want to tell your story in, how much prep work you want to do to bring the game to the table, and then the length of campaign and how you want to build your PC, or kind of what's important to you in the system. Once you go through these things, you'll be in a really good position to kind of look through and ask questions on the Discords or Reddits, or read through the game's mechanics and determine what game will be the best for you, what's going to be the most enjoyable for you to bring to your table. So, thanks everybody for hanging out for that. I hope you learned something from it, or kind of something that sparked for you there too that may help you out in your quest to try some new RPGs. Shameless plug, check out my TTRPG reviews. I'll have a link to your tier. You'll be able to go through and see some of the ones we've reviewed in the past and some cool things we liked, didn't like about it too. So hopefully it'll help out in your search. And the last thing too, if you're new to the sub, each month we do a new, different game of the month. With this and all the big news, we're doing Pathfinder 2e as our game of the month. So join us January 26th on my channel, Tegan J Gaming at twitch.com. Link down in the description. And come hang out with us and get a chance to win a free PDF copy of the Pathfinder 2e system. But overall, thanks for joining us. Like and subscribe if you're new. And until next time.